Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Welcome to this week's edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. The Dynamic Leaders Podcast is sponsored by Aurora Infotech. Actually, I'm going to cut because I forgot something there. So, you see, when you say you don't do it. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to this week's edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Roy Richardson. The Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast is sponsored by Aurora Infotech, a cybersecurity firm catering to the information security needs of small and medium-sized businesses in the Central Florida area. And this week, folks, I have a guest today who is a marketing communications strategist specialized in branding, marketing, and content strategies. Truth be known, marketing was not always his passion or his radar, so to say. He always had a passion for designing airplanes and spaceships, and he was on his way to becoming an aerospace engineer when he discovered a hidden passion for marketing. So he pivoted his career, earned his marketing degree from UCF, and focused thereafter on being a marketing management professional in the resort development and construction industries, and later transitioned to higher education. He has since earned his MBA with a concentration in sustainable business and is currently a doctoral candidate studying for his Ph.D. in global leadership. He's also served as past president for the American Marketing Association of Orlando, and he is a graduate of Leadership Orlando. And for the last 12 years, he's been a member of Rotary, having served as founding president of the Rotary Club of International Drive in Orlando, and he is now slated to become the district governor for Central Florida Territory for the 2022 to 2023 term. Folks, please join me in welcoming Andres Goyanes, Chief Alchemist of AETHER Marketing Communications. Andres, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much, Roy. It's great to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week.
I have been looking forward to, and I will say this, I'm really excited about getting your journey told. And here's a little fun fact for our audience. Andres and I actually know each other from way back in high school. We both attended a military boarding school, all boys military boarding school, I may say. And, we both had a passion for flight, aviation. Andres wanted to become an aeronautical engineer. I wanted to become an electrical engineer. And it was amazing. And one of the things you learn in this whole journey here that he'll take us on is how he pivoted. And I will say I kind of pivoted as well. But Andres, so great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you as well.
Awesome. So let me ask you here, how did you get started in business? Tell us about AETHER Marketing, and then, as part of that, tell us, why and what was the decision, or let's say the passion for branding, marketing, and content strategies.
Well, it's funny you ask, because originally, again, I was an aerospace engineering major at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. Around that time, my dad decided, after retiring, he was 51 at the time, he retired and spent a year just miserably at home. One morning he said, let's go, we're gonna go buy a building. That's exactly how he said it to me. And so we went out, started looking at buildings. A week later, we're putting an offer on a shopping strip in Holly Hill, which is between Daytona Beach and Ormond Beach. And next thing you know, we're landlords, and we're also importing tile, marble, and granite from Spain and from Italy.
Nice.
So throughout this whole time, I am going to school at Embry-Riddle. And of course, one day my dad said to me something I'll never forget to this day. He said, son, one day of business can be better than a year of salary. And that just lingered in my mind. I mean, I remember going to school and just looking. I was actually sitting in differential equations, which was the last class that I took as an engineering student. And I looked around, and I had classmates from everywhere in the world. I mean, there were guys from the Middle East, from Asia, from every corner of the US. And they're all super excited, just you can just tell that they're loving differential equations. And I was not, because I was thinking already of business ideas. So long story short,
you just say the name of that course there, and I'm already getting a headache.
I can imagine if anybody has gone through differential equations, you know that it is definitely, it tests your patience and even makes you wonder whether you are that smart or not. But, you know, in the end, what I did is actually I got up, I excused myself. I remember the name of the professor was Dr. Al-Humadi. And I believe I said to him, sir, I am excusing myself. I'm not feeling well, something to that effect. I walked straight to the registrar and I said, I need to change to something else. Fast forward, I literally jumped into marketing at UCF. I went ahead and applied, got in, and pretty much I've been very happy since then. I mean, I did not look back. I do not feel that I have a failed engineering career, because in the end, I work with several engineering firms and I understand, you know, the mindset. I understand what drives them. And when it came time to do marketing on my own, you know, for a business that I run, I said, you know what? All these people who are interested in doing mom and pop shops marketing, they want to do restaurant marketing. They want to, you know, I said, you know, let me challenge myself to work in something that is a lot. I guess to me, it's interesting. For some people, it may be the most boring thing, but I work with companies that work in the gas turbine engineering world.
Nice.
Some are aftermarket service providers. You know, they actually offer a better product than the OEM. And of course, you know, construction and surveying and other types of companies along those lines. The common denominator to all this, to bring it back to your question, I became very passionate about B2B marketing, business to business. That type of marketing is not emotional. It is a lot more rational and takes a lot longer for people to make decisions. And decisions are made based on information. I never forget that I attended a seminar where they deconstructed what B2B really comes down to. And they said, you know, it comes down to anything you sell that is B2B, it's about features, benefits, advantages, and value. If you can break down any information about a product or a service into those four elements, you can then market it effectively to the people who will make the decision. So again, you know, my journey started really with wanting to be in engineering, getting, I often say, getting tainted by the world of business, and eventually coming to terms with the fact that this is something I enjoy more than being an engineer.
And
Again, that's really a long story, but simple.
no, but I love it, and I love it. And what I do love about it is that, you know, most people would probably look and say, oh my God, I put like 2-3 years or 4 years into engineering. Now I've pivoted, I've lost those 4 years, etc. But you've actually used that to your advantage, because the industries that you work with now, you understand their speak, you understand their lingo, you understand their mindset and their way of being, because you, in fact, you were trained in that aspect. So when they speak, they know, when you guys engage, they know that you really understand the innards of their business.
Indeed. And sometimes, you know, I go to many companies where they're defensive initially, because essentially the core service that I offer is I become the outsourced chief marketing officer or outsourced director of marketing for companies that either they never seen the value of having a marketing staff, and sometimes they don't need it. They just need someone to sit in their decision-making sessions, to help them make those decisions, and to guide sometimes even some of their entry-level staff they may have in marketing. Quite often I find companies that hire a young person straight out of college because they think that they're gonna take them to the next level, but they find that these people, you know, I mean, God bless them, because we were all there at one point where we didn't have that much experience. They are still kind of feeling the ground ahead of them. They don't really want to make decisions. They are afraid there. And so when you are an outsourced or fractional chief marketing officer, you speak your mind. You tell them what you feel. You tell them what you think. You do it with knowing that if the decision is rational and it's going to make sense, they're going to keep you there for a long time. And I have clients that have had me. I mean, I'm still working with them for 7 or 8 years. So
nice. That's impressive. That's impressive. And like you said, you've positioned yourself with them as a trusted advisor, but more so, It's not that you're necessarily on their payroll as an employee where, you're concerned about, let's say ticking off the boss. You speak the word. In my world of cybersecurity, I tell my clients all the time, look, I'm like a doctor, I need to tell you the way it is, whether it's sweet or whether it's sour. I need to put it out there the way it is, and you need to accept that the way that it is. Because if I was the doctor that you came to me and I kind of sugarcoated everything that went wrong, then from an ethics perspective, I have a problem, and from an integrity perspective, I can't do that. So
absolutely. That's a great point. I do want to share. I'll share an anecdote that I had with a local company that are my clients. They were about to meet with one of the theme parks, and I went to their office soon after my engagement with them started. And I'm sitting there in a conference room, and I'm saying, listen, we need to fix all these things. And I always use we because I feel a part of every team that I join, and they do treat me like a team, and I'm very grateful for that. And of course, people were, saying, hey, I can tell they're looking at me like, this guy is telling the owner that he needs to fix this and that. And of course, the owner at one point turns around, looks at me and says, what's going through every guy's mind in here? It's, did this guy just tell the owner of the company he needs to fix that? And I said, absolutely, but as you know, I'm not doing it with any ill intent. I'm doing it because I do care about you. And branding is not just the logo. It's not just the colors. It's really the way you behave and the way you present your company, whether it's a vehicle, a building, the way people dress. So again, that's why branding is such a powerful tool for any business, regardless of your size, regardless whether you make millions of dollars or just a few $100,000 a year.
It's amazing because you're there giving that story and that anecdote, and I almost saw myself giving the story of cybersecurity, and it comes down to one word, right? Whether it's branding or cybersecurity, it comes down to culture, right? And basically that's what it boils down to. I mean, like you said, it's more than the logo, it's more than the stationery, it's more than the nice cars with the logo, but it's the entire culture of the organization and the aura it gives off with respect to its brand.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, there's companies that they don't yet buy into it. I've heard it all. I've heard, marketing is just something that this girl we hired from UCF does, or it's something that this kid that we got from, Full Sail does. But they don't understand that marketing is a competency, no different than accounting, information technology, finance. If anything, marketing sometimes is closer to finance because we also have to look at numbers. It's not just about making things pretty and bright and beautiful. We need to make sure that we're tracking, we're analyzing, and we're taking action. And if anything, course correction to make sure that we are spending the dollars in the right place. No different with cybersecurity. Everyone jumps into cybersecurity. It becomes a buzzword the first time they get hacked, or when someone gets their computer locked up and they have they're requesting 10 Bitcoins in exchange for unlocking it.
Yeah. Except 10 Bitcoins today is no longer what it used to cost. Some people may be surprised at what 10 Bitcoins cost today, right? So, but that's interesting. You said two things there that I took notice of, and let me go back on one here where you said that you always use we when you're with your clients, etc. And I have that habit as well. So I think that's part of our military schooling DNA. If my wife was here, she always tells me, and one of her favorite comebacks to me is that we is yes in French. It's, you're always trying to speak French to me, right? So
right.
No, but one of the things I wanted to go, all jokes aside, one of the things I wanted to go back on, and you mentioned that you specialize and B2B and marketing for B2B, which is I'm glad you brought that up, because I think where a lot of businesses go wrong, unfortunately, with marketing, and you're the expert, so please correct me on this, is that they try to take a business to consumer or a B2C approach and apply it in a business to business setting. And of course, there are different timelines there, right? One, the business to business takes a lot more maturing, a longer period, building trust, people buy from people. So you got to establish that rapport, et cetera, where B2C is more short-term and more impulsive.
Correct. It is more emotional.
Yeah.
B2C is more emotional. B2B tends to have a long cycle of the sales or business development process, which is where someone who is used to B2C, they're itching to get the sale. They don't realize that you have to go through a process where, for some of my clients, we will develop blog articles. In the blog articles, we may actually have not just an article, but it may be a white paper, it may be a case study, a point of reference for someone to take action. Quite often, the first person to look at your website is not the decision maker. Sometimes it is, if it's a smaller company, but sometimes it may be an intern. It may just be an operations person, clerical job, an administrative assistant. They're told, listen, you need to go find someone who can do this. And of course, those people are going to come in there. They're going to see the information. That's the first person you have to impress. That's where branding comes into play. Do you look well put together? Do you look like you have what it takes? Then that person's going to say to their boss or the decision maker, this is what I found. That person's probably going to look at it, look at websites. That's quite often the litmus test for whether are you professional enough or not. And of course, from there on, they're going to look at all the information that breaks down. I was going to, tell you another perspective. There's a lot of people out there who are in real estate, and I often tell, I happen to be a full disclosure, licensed real estate broker as well. And quite often you find people who make an emotion immediately. They find a home and they say, this is the home. Okay. And I've seen actually situations where the wife will look at the husband and say, this is it. I don't want to go look at any other homes. Now, that's back in my days when I was doing the residential. I have since, focused more on commercial. And now the questions I get would be, okay, how many parking spots? How many cars drive near this intersection? They look at things from a different perspective, but it's more analytical. And that's a great way to compare B2B and B2C. It's like, one is emotional, the other one's based on rational thought and breaking that information into what I call consumable little chunks of data or nuggets.
Got you. So question for you, along your path here, and you started in, like you said, now also, doing some real estate but really focused today on your firm and your marketing firm.
Absolutely.
What have you learned so far in your journey, and what's exciting right now?
So what is exciting right now? Well, people are working from home. Because people are working from home, they're spending more time on the internet. That means that, and we have to look at the B2C because it kind of gives you a little bit of lead into to how B2B works. But the fact that they're at home, they're working from home, they can spend more time. That time that they would usually spend driving, now they're spending it, maybe looking for products. Quite often, I have actually seen an increase in my Google Analytics for my marketing business, where more and more people are visiting the site than say 2019. My clients, I've been looking at it as well. We have seen increases in the number of visits, unique visitors, and also activity within the website, because again, people have more time to think, time to process, time to research is usually limited when you have a long commute. So I think it's a perfect time for people to really enhance their marketing and really, I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, I got a classic call, and I always make reference to these calls. It's the person who inherited the business from the father or the mother or the grandparents. And essentially they say, listen, grandpa got me this company. I'm ready to take on it, but we look like we belong in the 1980s. The business cards are still black and white and with raised lettering. And that's one of the opportunities you have right now that, tend to your brand. Make sure that when things go back to whatever new normal, that comes our way, you're going to be ready for the next, leap forward with the right look, the right branding, the right content. And on that note, I'm working with another client right now. They do a truck maintenance for Mack trucks, international trucks. I just rebranded the entire company. And the way that it looks right now, if this person was to sell the company, they could probably get tenfold what they would have gotten before. Everything from the business cards to the social media to the website, even sales sheets that they give to the truck drivers and the fleet managers. They're all branded. They all look like they belong in the same family, which at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want to look cohesive. You want them to look aligned. Any of you has actually at some point gotten a brochure, the classical trifold, which I always say trifold scream. I'm a small business. I'm not a big fan of them, but you picked up that trifold and you're like, this is clip art. This was put together. The alignment of the words are bad. If someone's looking to spend big money with your company, they may think you cut corners because your branding is not that sophisticated. And the fact of the matter is, my company and my team, we deliver at a fraction of the cost that a large ad agency does. Because again, we stick to what works. We are not here to, work with companies that we actually quite often, we will hire or we will help hire the replacement, the actual director of marketing that's going to come into the company. And quite often, actually, there's two companies that still have me on retainer where I advise that person. And that person is actually, this one person in particular is very thankful that I was able to get her in the role. Because
that's nice. So
that builds synergy.
Yeah, of course. And well, it's synergy, but you have a proven methodology that has worked time and time again. You flushed out, all the areas that didn't work. You perfected it. You made it, improved it over time. It's worked for one customer, it's worked for the other, and you make adjustments as you move along. And that's why you mentioned earlier also in terms of tracking your numbers and tracking what works, what doesn't work. We'll get into that in a little bit as we get further down into the questions here. But you touched just now on branding strategy, and share with us, Andres, what makes for a good branding strategy?
First, the willingness of the company to make a decision. Yeah. Resistance is something that I quite commonly encounter, particularly with older companies where you have staff that has been there for a long time, and they may see me as an outsider. I come in there to do the presentation. I tell them what I've done, show and tell, but they're still not believing it. So what makes for a good branding strategy is storytelling. You have to tell them the story that you see from the outside, because quite often, many of the companies that call me in for a presentation, they do it because they've been forced by someone. Someone said, in the staff, you need to talk to Andres. I really get most of my business from referrals. Yeah. I tell them what I see, and then I tell them what I believe it can be. And I try to get them excited, because that, everyone sells. Everyone has to sell. And if they don't believe in it, I use examples. Quite often I'll use an example from, and they're not my client, but Truly Nolan. That they're yellow mice with big ears and tails on all their vehicles. Yeah, that is amazing. That actually it taps into one of my big subjects of interest, which is making things remarkable. And I'm not coining that term. That term actually I got from Seth Godin, who's one of my favorite authors in marketing. He's written about 30 or 40 books. Being remarkable is worth making a remark about. And, you can just be, normal and just have a website and have a couple different items. But if you actually go above and beyond, which again, it's not a matter of cost, it's a matter of idea being assimilated and agreeing to it, then that brand strategy can actually open the door for many more ideas to be brought in. Again, it's one of those things that every customer is different, but they have to be open and willing to allow an outsider with a clear view and truly no agenda for anything other than making them look good.
Interesting, interesting. So would you, your approach is you come in, you push the envelope, but you bring them in to give them a reality check in terms of, hey, when you look at your brand today, you may see it as, this, you're seeing stars and lights. The reality of the matter is, from the outside, it ain't shining. But you know what? This is what here are some things that we can do to sort of bring this all together. And in the end, we'll have the spotlight and the stars and the fireworks around it.
Correct. On that point, my title, I gave myself a cool title. It's Chief Alchemist. Alchemy was this predecessor to physics and chemistry, part mystical, part science, where you would, the alchemists were trying to convert metals into gold. And essentially what I tell everyone when they ask me about my title, I tell them, well, that's what we do. We take dull and, really not remarkable type of organizations, and we turn them into something bright and shiny that is going to be remarkable and everyone's going to notice. And that's your first step in marketing, is that be noticed. There's a lot of competition out there. There's 100 pest control companies out there. There's 500 electricians, so on and so forth. What makes you stand out? And by the way, again, it's companies like Truly Nolan or Ferran Engineering in downtown Orlando. Everyone has driven past that building with the big fans. I mean, and looks like you have big AC plugs on the side of the building. That's remarkable. Every time you drive past it, you remember it.
Yeah.
So again,
and you could actually be stuck for miles and miles in traffic on I-4, and you'll spot one of those yellow buggies, and even if you can't see the airs on it, you kind of know who it belongs to, right?
You do.
Yeah. Amazing. So, when it comes to marketing, and we had a little bit on this before with the B2B to B2C, but even established businesses today who really deal with, business to business transactions, where do you think that they go off course with regards to their branding and their marketing strategies?
So one of the big things is that many companies out there do not curate their brand. Teaching employees that there's a certain level of cohesiveness that goes well beyond the graphic is very important. For example, what kind of font do you use on your marketing materials? Are you using Times New Roman? Or are you using Calibri? Behaviors. I think another good point of reference, even though it's B2C, is we've all been to Chick-fil-A. Anything you tell them, they say, my pleasure. Or Publix. You ask any employee where the soy sauce is, and they're going to stop what they're doing, they're going to walk you over. Same thing happens with B2B. In B2B, you have to be willing to deliver on the brand promise. Because again, it's all about relationship building. And perhaps that's really the common denominator for B2B. I mean, there's relationship building in business to consumer, but in B2B, if you build a strong relationship, you will have a customer for a lifetime. And we all know that B2B is not selling a pack of cookies for $3.50. They may be selling, like some of my clients, they're selling gas turbine parts that run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, or service packages where they do engineering maintenance, and those may be $250,000 to $2 or $3 million a year. So when someone has to make that decision to bring that money, that expenditure to your company, you want to make sure that you are all tapered up. Nice.
Now, you mentioned something earlier with regards to, let's say a business, investor who buys a business that's been around for a very long time. Maybe they did not really do any upgrading on their branding over the years, et cetera. Or even in today's climate where, a lot of the older generation are handing over the keys to the kingdom now to their kids. And so, you may very well have scenarios where you have a client saying, hey, you know what, I bought an existing company, but the brand image looks like it's stuck in the 80s, et cetera. What do you suggest? What is your take in terms of companies, if they find themselves in that particular predicament today, or maybe scenario, not predicament, what can they do to help, and turn around their brand?
Well, first things, I tread carefully, because we know that even though B2B is not emotional, a company is very emotional to the person who owns it.
Yes, that's true.
So the first things that I look at what are the equities that we can draw from, say, the existing imagery. I always start with the eye candy. The eye candy is the logo and the styling. Why? Because they can visualize it, and it's going to evoke that emotional reaction in their chest, and they're going to say, wow, this is really cool. And then they're going to say, I want more, right? So again, first thing that I do is I educate them. I show them, again, samples of how other people have evolved and how they've done it. I always ask a question. I say, if you were to sell the company, how much do you think your company would be worth? And it's one of those loaded questions that I will ask either a high-level management person or an owner. And it's quite often that's a call where they go like, and quite often they'll say, you make a good point. We probably would not be worth a lot. So again, using building blocks to build the case is essential, because otherwise it's too emotional for them to react. Sometimes I found a company where the son-in-law made the logo, and they said, no, he divorced the daughter. We don't want that logo anymore. Great. Okay. I know I can just plow through. Then I have some that are like, oh, my son or my daughter designed this logo 25 years ago. I cannot part ways with it. What I tend to do is I try to do a brand refresh instead of a rebranding.
Right.
Again, there's three types of scenarios here. You can have a brand new company, sometimes startups, and I do work with some startups. They need a completely brand new brand. That sounds a little redundant, but again, it has to be brand new, fresh, and it has to connect with the market. Then you have rebranding, which is that maybe there's something that went wrong along the way. They're trying to change their image. Maybe they merge with another company or acquire another company, took their assets in, and now they want to make sure they bring the equities from the other company. And then there's that level of comfort that people have with their current brand, where I know that it would be too difficult to do the full rebranding. So I call that the brand refresh. I take the equities, the core elements, and I show them what it would look like if that was a child back then and that is now an adult today. Last but not least that I do, I tend to, when I'm building a brand, I take those graphic points of reference, and I tend to do I do it often in a PowerPoint presentation or a PDF for my clients. I'll put their brand at the center, and then I put all their competitors around it. And then outside of the competitors, I also put big OEMs or larger companies, and I tell them, who do you think you belong with? Believe it or not, that is often the decisive factor, because they can visualize then that clip art won't cut it anymore.
Yeah. No, that's a great strategy. I really like that. And it's when you talk about clip art, the term cookie cutter comes to mind, right? Or templated, et cetera. And I see a lot of, I'm happy to see that a lot of businesses are really positioning themselves online now, which is something that, in this day and age, you'll be surprised that there's still a lot of businesses
Absolutely.
out there that don't have a web presence, but more so if they do have a web presence, some of the websites look like they may have been generated in the late 90s or
the
2000s.
Drupal and Joomla websites that kind of carried over. I still find those. There's people out there who have those. A point to that is that we develop websites on WordPress. WordPress has one big advantage, which is that there are themes. And point of caution to anyone who's listening who says, "Oh, I found a great theme." When you're looking for a theme for a website, you got to make sure that it's a high rated, that it has a team of people behind it doing updates on a constant basis, and that kind of carries into your own field of cybersecurity.
Yep.
There's a lot of backdoors that can be opened if you don't have the latest plugins or the right theme. And then most importantly, is it a theme that will be easier to update? And again, I always tell people there's about 2 or 3 themes that I work with, and my team actually tells me sometimes, why don't we work with this one? I'm like, look at how many star ratings it has in the marketplace, or look at how people are complaining, because there's something that happened with it. So,
or look, go back and take a look from a security perspective, and you'll see how many vulnerabilities it had, and how many times it was exploited by hackers, and how many websites were taking over because the theme was not properly written, and or it was not updated and maintained.
You are correct. You are very correct. So again, these are things that marketing is really about making sound decisions based on the information you have. It should not be an emotional decision. So again, to that point, when someone's building a website, also they need to look at the structure. What is this website going to do, first and foremost. In B2B, the main focus is not to sell something online. I've had some people who wanted to do that. Tell them, listen, unless you're wanting to sell hats and shirts for your company, which it makes no sense if you're an industrial company. But for the most part, there's some companies out there that may have a big brand and people have a following who want to buy those shirts and cash.
They want the swag.
They want the swag, absolutely. Yeah. But really, what is it going to do? So quite often it's about lead generation. It's about attracting prospects that are going to be self-qualifying themselves when they come into the website. And then I mentioned structure. Within that structure, what do you have to offer them? Do you have blog articles? Do you have the information they need to make a decision? Case in point, I'm working with a client that has very specific markets that they serve. These markets are very specific in the sense, one is automotive, another one is maritime. They do some aerospace and some power generation. That is it. They tell me in their old website, they keep getting leads asking if they do work with some other areas. And I tell them, your website, the way it was written, the content was developed in a way that doesn't help people self-qualify. That's where you're getting those. Same thing, I have a surveying company as a client that they were getting a lot more requests for someone to survey their property. They focus on construction and on large engineering projects. They don't just send out a surveyor to your house to do. That's not what they do. What we did is we changed the content to make it very explicit that this is who we work with, and in a very, I'm going to say, tactful way, we do not work with individual homeowners. That has actually brought down the amount of inquiries that were just, because business development team was just kept going, Andres, we're getting all of this crappy leads. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what we have to tweak.
What a lot of people don't realize is that a website is really a digital storyboard, right? It is your story that's being told there in terms of the messaging that you want to get out to people. And messaging can be in the text that you have and the story that you've documented there, but it's also based on the visual collateral or the visual resources that are there, right? Whether it's video, whether it's imagery, whether it's the icons, the branding, different things like that. And so if you are, in case in point, like what you just said there, if you happen to have the wrong imagery or the wrong messaging, you might in fact attract the wrong types of crowd. But it goes beyond that, right? Because what a lot of people, I think, don't really understand also is that developing a website and putting one online is one thing, maintaining it is a whole complete other thing. You talked about tracking before, and this is where this comes back now. Tell me a little bit, and very high level, very quickly, the importance of search engine optimization, because I don't think that a lot of people out there, either they know it or they think they know it, and they actually do more damage to their own sites than good.
I'm glad you asked that question because it was lingering. I was going to insert the comment that I'm about to make. So search engine optimization, let's take it back to Google. Google, about 90% of all searches happen on Google. Yeah, most people know that. If you don't know it, you can look it up. It's well documented.
We don't use Alta Vista anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No more Alta Vista or any of those other smaller engines. So what happens? Google was started by Sergey Brin and Larry Page, who were scholars. And I'll say here, my point of reference is that I'm doing the Ph.D. program, and one of the big no-nos is, but it's not the big, it is the no-no of them all, no plagiarism. You shall not copy someone else's content unless you're attributing or citing it properly. So in the old days, and there's a lot of companies that still have their websites from the old days, you know what they would do? They would find another website that sold exactly what they sell. They would copy the information, change the company name, and now they're wondering, why am I not getting visits? Well, I go back to this scholar perspective of plagiarism, where duplicate content is the worst thing you can do. It will actually deprecate, will push down your company on the search results to the point that you may not be found. Most people only search the first, maybe the second page of results. So again, search engine optimization, what it does is it allows the content to be streamlined using the concept of keywords and key phrases and the density. Also, these keywords have to be researched so that we can understand whether they make sense. And quite often, I have clients who will argue with me, oh, no, I don't, this is what I want that keyword to be. I tell them, well, the data shows, because there's tools that we have that we can use to develop this data. The data showing that people search more for this than for that. Also, when someone works in a certain industry, they have blinders on. I mean, they only know what they know. Yeah. So the challenge is that they quite often don't want to see that there's other opportunities. We can get into, I mean, you said very top level. I mean, there's strategies like long tail keywords where you have a really long phrase that is actually better optimized than the shorter version. Now, you may not get a lot more visits. You may get low visits from the long tail perspective, but there's going to be more qualification. You're going to have a better person. So it's not like the business department at this client said, you're getting us crappy leads. I said, no, I'm not getting you crappy leads. Is that, we are tweaking until the point where we can weed out the people who don't really belong on this website. Search engine optimization and content development, which is the other side of the coin, are really how you are found. And if you don't place enough importance on that, there's things like minimum amount of words on a page. So again, all of this we take into account and we develop strategies to meet the challenge. And then turn the challenge into opportunity.
So that was actually going to be my next question. So you actually help businesses with this aspect as well, in terms of not only the design of not only their branding, but the marketing that goes hand in hand with that branding after, whether it's a refresh, whether it's a new brand or a complete, uplift, right? You work with them hand in hand, you come up with a marketing strategy, but you do all the search engine optimization, the whole 9 yards. You do the web development, you do the web maintenance for them as well, I'm assuming, right? So yes, they don't necessarily have to worry about plugins that are, and I know that's one of the big things that, sometimes when we do an audit for a company and we go and we take a look, from a security perspective, we look at their website as well. We'll see that, they're running all sorts of, plugins, et cetera, that haven't been, they're 60 iterations behind where they're supposed to be. But you do all of that for your clients.
We do. So one of the things, we work with whatever is comfortable and makes sense for a client. We have clients on retainer. We have clients who are fee for service, and we have what I call the one shots. These are the, I need this. And those are usually the I need it by tomorrow, and I really avoid doing work by tomorrow because, again, I have a team of people. We're all in different locations, and if I have to get someone to react to that, and I'm not in, quite often I may have to do graphic design because the graphic designer is not really available. So yes, again, I don't like to do things out of a knee-jerk reaction. However, those one shots often lead to fee for service and to retainer. So we do that for them. Yes, we can be as involved as we can be. They want us to be. Quite often I find myself training people, as I mentioned before, to actually take over later on. And I keep them on a small retainer, just something that they can check with me. We have a checkpoint or two every month. And, it may be just as simple as updating plugins. Other times it's writing blog articles. And I happen to have, and I guess it's one of the horror stories that I have. It's a horror and success story at the same time. I outsourced to someone who wanted, so I had a client that had a very specific market. And it is not a market that I am familiar with. So I outsourced it to someone else who was an expert in this field, a certain type of engineering. I brought back the content, and you know what they said to me? You didn't write this. I said, no, I did not. I said, I had a team member do it. He said, this is not what we contracted for. You know, you were recommended by so-and-so, and we love the way things are written. Literally, I had to rewrite an entire website with about 15 pages over a 3-day period myself.
Wow.
And they were super happy.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, maybe that's the Midas touch that I have when it comes to content, that I'm able to deliver something. You know, I mean, I've done content for medical doctors, engineering, architecture, but perhaps it's just I've been doing this for about 25 years now. So, and I was going to point out that after I left college,
if you don't know how to do it after 25 years, we need to have a discussion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, on that note, I've learned to do just about everything that any team member does.
Yeah.
Graphic design, web design, copywriting, spinning plates, you name it. Because again, I was actually a partner in other ad agencies before, and you have always a problem that someone quits or they disappear. They go work on another company without giving you a 2-week notice right in the middle of a project. So, you know, that's one of the
you got to be able to step up, next man up, right? I mean,
absolutely
fill that void. Awesome. So let me ask you here, and let's you know, well, let me ask you this first. As a business owner, you know, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Whether clients are going to pay their invoice or not. Luckily, that is no longer a problem as big as it used to be at a different time in my business life. Again, there's ways that you manage through that. No, all kidding aside, I think one thing that keeps me up at night is what's changing in the marketplace. Because again, marketing, there's a lot of flux. There's this competency, like any other, you have to stay in the forefront of information, and sometimes things change too quickly. And you know, case in point, I mean, you know, when there's an algorithm change from Google, you know, you just find out because you see a drop in the number of visits, and you're like, what the heck happened? You know, we've been getting, you know, consistently these many visits, and now this dropped, and then you give it another week saying, okay, maybe it was a fluke. And then boom, it happens again. And then you have to just kind of scramble and see, okay, what's going on? And have to say, for any of us who are in this field, our main source of information is really other experts, other luminaries out there who have established, I call it, you know, their secret spy networks, that they're able to then release information that helps us adjust or you know, counteract whatever's happening in the marketplace.
And I can imagine, I mean, you know, and in my world in cybersecurity, you know, the threat landscape is changing by the second. And so, you know, yes, I also have, you know, I stay up at night worrying in terms of, you know, what's next, how are we going to pivot, how do we counter the next, you know, offensive punch with, you know, what defense are we going to use and different things like that. But in your world, it's even a little more interesting, I would say, because, you know, while my world, we drive the process, and in your world, a lot of times you may even have the scenario where your clients are driving the process. And what do I mean by that? You know, how many different social media platforms are out there? And there's almost like a new one coming out every week, right? I mean, who, you know, a while ago, who knew anything about TikTok? And all of a sudden there's TikToks, and now you have to, and TikTok started off more as for, you know, fun, but now it's, you know, there's a whole, you know, concept around it in terms of using it for business and this and that and the other. And there's Instagram and there's this and that. So I'm assuming in your world, it's a constant adjustment, right?
It is. And sometimes clients are their own worst enemy, because they, you know, they basically, there's one particular, not to get too cerebral with this, but there's it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a psychological perspective where someone believes that what they hear from someone, or what they believe already, is the truth, and that no new knowledge can come their way. So they become so comfortable, and they only know what they know.
Yeah.
And I find myself, especially with, you know, I'm going to say quite educated people, I mean, engineers, architects, that they will argue with me, or medical doctors. And I have to, you know, in a very tactful way, tell them, listen, I know you know a lot about a lot of stuff, but let me explain to you why this, you know, this is changing, or why this needs to be done a certain way.
I feel
Because
your
again,
pain. I feel your pain.
once again, so I always tell people, accountants, they have a regulatory reason to file taxes for you at certain times in the year as a business. Marketing doesn't have that. There's no like, get your marketing plan ready by April 15th. I wish we had something like that. But again, that's really I think that's one of the biggest challenges for any service provider like you or me, that you are working, yes, on their time, and it's only when they become aware and they become enlightened or that's
or something happens or something
happens. Yes.
Yes. It's a reactive approach, right? So cool. So, let me ask you here. My audience out there, I'm sure, you're spinning my wheels here, and I'm sure in my audience, the wheels are turning there. So, one of the things that we try to do is impart knowledge, impart, opportunity for growth, etc. What are three of the most essential nuggets you can, from your journey that you can pass on to others that may help a business owner out there today with their branding, marketing, or even, life strategy?
Think before you act.
Amen.
I think that goes a long way. Again, in B2B, it is not an emotional thing, sale or so, think before you act. And that goes both for me as a service provider as well as for the clients. Another one is, again, don't just because something worked for someone doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Quite often, you mentioned cookie cutter. Companies will say, well, I want to do exactly what so-and-so has done. Well, again, unless they're exactly even the same, even if they're the same type of business, you don't want to be doing exactly the same thing. I mean, you do so to a certain extent. You want to be kind of like I was telling my wife, I said, she's like, why is Ross always next to TJ Maxx if they're competitors? I said, that's because when people go to shop for clothing or whatever they need, they have little choices in there. So they want to be next to each other.
Yeah.
You want a certain level of that, but at the same time, what makes you remarkable? Always ask yourself, what can you do different to stand out? And I'm not talking about spending money. I'm not talking about it. Just maybe the decision to start blogging and to actually do it often. And I say this because I'm the worst person. I don't blog a lot for my business. I do a lot of blogging for others. But again,
what do they say about the shoemaker shoes?
That they never have good. Yeah, they never have shoes or good ones either. So you're absolutely right. I mean, and that's part of the. But again, third one I can tell you is, do not use duplicate content. Stop doing that. If you're doing that, don't do that. It's sometimes the biggest challenge is helping someone understand that they have just shot themselves in the foot and they keep doing it, and now they have no more toes to shoot off. Sorry for the bloody, but again, it is definitely a very difficult thing to counteract when again, going back to that Dunning-Kruger effect, where they know what they know and they don't want to understand that they're doing things wrong.
Cool. So we're rounding off the top here. I got a couple more questions for you, and we're going to try and wrap these up quickly. What are one or two books that you read along the way that influenced your journey, and a nugget from each?
One book that I love, and that's where I got my title, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This book is just an amazing, amazing book. It's, I'm not going to give it away if you never read it. It is a bestseller, so, you should definitely grab it. I mean, there's a ton of places out there where you can find it for really low cost. It's about a young man's journey, only to realize that the most important things that in life were there to begin with, and they only realize about it after their journey. And I think that parallels a little bit my life. Again, I come from a multicultural family. I was born in Puerto Rico. I grew up in Spain. My dad's from Spain. My mom's from Puerto Rico. Then I ended up here in the United States.
At a military boarding school with me.
And a military boarding school with Roy. And again, but that whole journey made me realize how special of a life I've had, and how it's really, made a big difference. The other book, I was going to say a different one because I prepared for this call, and then I started reading another book, which is called Cultural Intelligence by David Thomas and Kerry Inkson. cultural intelligence is one of the areas that I really am specializing in my doctoral studies. And this is the ability to communicate with people, but not so much how you communicate to them, how you adapt to the novel situations that you come across. And just recently, someone was telling me, "Oh, well, we don't need cultural intelligence if you're going to be just working in Orlando." I said, "No, you're wrong. You know, Orlando, you have tourism. Yeah. Orlando, you have residents from different parts of the world that are moving here. When you have cultural intelligence, you have the ability to adapt, understand, and empathize with the individuals that you're talking with. Because whether it's B2B or B2C, it's people doing business with people.
Of course.
So keeping that in mind, that we're moving away from IQ, the intellectual quotient, EQ, EQ, SQ, and CQ. EQ being emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, SQ being social quotient or social intelligence, and then cultural intelligence, which is, or the quotient as well, which is CQ. These are very important skills to have, particularly in marketing, because again, one size fits all does not work, never worked. Some people say we used to work. No, it may be at some point where we were not too sophisticated in our marketing, but you have to be able to adapt to a global market. Whether you want it or not, globalization is running its course, and therefore you are going to get, if you have the right product, you're going to get customers from across the world, and you need to be able to understand how they think, how they react, how they behave in a conversation or negotiation.
So speaking about globalization, speaking about the ability to adapt and understand people and work with people all across the globe for a common cause, such as the eradication of polio, etc. Tell me about the Rotary Club, your involvement there, and you actually were the founder of the Rotary Club of International Drive. So give us a little a quick fly through.
Absolutely. So Rotary is one of the oldest service organizations in the world. Service organization you may be familiar with also with the Kiwanis or Lions Club. In Rotary's case, we have a mission to eradicate polio. That is the main thing we're doing, and we are down to only 2 countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan, with well under 100 people. I know it's been a big effort. Something else to say about that, the most famous Rotarian of them all, Bill Gates, for every dollar we raised against polio, he gives us 2. So every dollar becomes 3. And he raises, or he helps us raise billions of dollars. And so as a result of that, it's a very important way to give back. I believe that every professional should, some way or another, not necessarily through Rotary, it can be through your church, it can be through some other ways. Giving back lets your heart rest in a place where you can feel that you can be prosperous, but you can also help other people. And yes, you mentioned my Rotary Club of International Drive. I was the founder. Before that, I was a member of the Rotary Club of Lake Buena Vista, which meets in Disney Springs. And it has been a really interesting journey. When I first became a Rotarian, first thing that really bothered me is that the Rotary Club of Lake Buena Vista meets every Thursday at 7 a.m. And I was like, 7 a.m. Oh my goodness. But you know what? I grew to love Rotary in those first 3 years that I spent in that club. And then one day I said, there's no Rotary Club. Well, actually, we used to get a lot of talk about marketing. So here's a great lesson into how I applied marketing. Rotarians have to visit, for the most part, if they choose to, a Rotary meeting every week. So in any given year, 52 meetings, even when they travel. Yep. As a matter of fact, whenever I travel to South America or Europe, I always visit Rotary clubs and I make lots of great friends. So it's a great way to make good connections. But we used to get all these members who would come to Lake Buena Vista and say, they would tell me, it's like, how can you do this? 7 a.m. I'm here with my kids for a big vacation. And, I wish I could just have a drink instead of breakfast. The light bulb lit up. It didn't take long. And I actually approached the district and I said, could we open one in iDrive, maybe next to Universal Studios or SeaWorld? This one's already serving the Disney crowd. What about the other ones? And they said, well, no one's really taken on the initiative to do it. And I said, well, I'll do it. Yeah. And within a few months, we got chartered with 36 members at that time. And so this goes to show that, you just have to have an open mind for opportunities out there, because what we did is actually now, well, we've been meeting on Zoom because of the pandemic, but before that, on any given Wednesday, because we meet at Wednesdays at 6:30 in the afternoon, as we used to say, or we still say it, it's a drinking club. People would come because we were actually 5 minutes away from the convention center. So guess what? A lot of people will look up Rotary clubs near Orlando. And by the way, the Rotary Club of Lake Buena Vista has been highly optimized for SEO, so that anytime you search for a Rotary Club near Orlando, we pop up at that first page. And so it certainly helped, to have someone like me contribute to that. But we get visitors. Sometimes we get 4 or 5, and we've actually had as many as 12 visitors in 1 week. And so again, we filled the gap. The marketing there strategy was that, let's open a Rotary Club in a new location. Fast forward from that was in 2011, 2012, we got chartered. Rotary has become an opportunity for me to develop my leadership skills in parallel to my work. I have managed teams of copywriters, designers, drone pilots, and you name it. I've had teams as small as 2 or 3 and as many as 15 to 20. And Rotary has given me an opportunity to really do an altruistic labor of love, helping not just with polio. I mean, we do a lot of good things in the community. Our club has actually worked a lot with the Tangelo Park school. We give them dictionaries. We give the 3rd graders, every one of them gets an encyclopedic dictionary. We raise funds for that. And we also give money every year, at least, depending on how much fundraising has been done, $1,000 book scholarship to a Rosen College of Hospitality student.
Oh, that's,
so again,
that's nice.
Rotary Clubs is just your local group of people. We don't have any creed. We don't have religion. We don't have politics, because Rotary has 1.2 million members all around the world. And last but not least, I was honored with being elected the Rotary District Governor for 2022-23, which is a momentous year. And I'm going to tell you why. Rotary International, which is based out of Chicago, in the 100 and some years that it's been around, has never had a woman president. And the year when I'm president, Jennifer Jones, she's Canadian. She's going to be the first woman to be a Rotary International president. As we like to say, she's the first one. She's not the last one. We believe that's going to be, again, I am super excited to do that, because again, last thing I'll plug in here. My mom, who's from Puerto Rico, she was the first woman in Puerto Rico to earn the FCC license to be a broadcaster.
Oh, wow.
So that's where I get this whole talking a lot thing. But, back in the 60s, when she was told it was a man's job. And again, I am very, I wish that I didn't have to say this, but I'm very proud to be in a time where we are evolving and glass ceilings are broken, not just for women, but for minorities. The opportunity is there. People keep breaking the multiple ceilings that are out there. And it's a very exciting time. I just wish that it would be farther into time. Actually, this had happened a lot earlier, and that we were actually farther into time to look back and say, this happened back then, but maybe that's our role. Our role right now is to foster the idea that anyone can be anything they can be if they put their hearts and minds to it.
Well, Andres, I will say this, you are certainly a testament to that belief that you just stated there.
Thank you.
And knowing you from way back when, and I'm not surprised as to where you are, because you always, you were
likewise.
Always,
feeling is mutual.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. You were always a shaker and a mover, and somebody who, when they put their mind to doing something would get it done. So it does not surprise me at all. I know you have a very beautiful, loving and partner, Veronica, who is your better half there, and
my muse.
Yes, and so yes, we are all here. In my business, my wife is my boss. I always tell people, I'm not going to pretend to be Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm not going to pretend to be the boss for 8 hours and then not be the boss for the remaining 16. But no, so we're all about these ceilings that are being broken and certainly support them, and Godspeed, and especially a very proud father myself of my daughter who's who's also a PhD candidate right now in biomedical engineering. So amen to that, brother. Amen.
Yes.
So
who knows? Maybe a Richardson will be the one who finds the big cure for bioengineering. That stuff. That's well, she comes from a good pedigree, so.
And she also actually graduated from our alma mater. So
yes.
So listen, let me we got a few minutes left here, and I want to ask you this here, and something I always ask my guests here, because every time that I think I've heard the ultimate dream board, somebody comes and tops it. And I think at the end, one of these days, I need to probably make a collage of all the different people who were recommended for these boards, and we'll have this superpower. But if you could assemble a dream board of advisors, of 2 or 3 advisors, of influential people, either dead or alive, who would they be? Why would you choose them? And how would they help influence your journey today?
First person would be Mahatma Gandhi.
Nice.
I believe that he was a man that he practiced servant leadership, which is one of my favorite topics. That would definitely be my operations director, or at least I'm advisory board. Believe it or not, I would take Elon Musk.
I like Elon Musk. He's on one. He would be on my board for sure.
Yeah, he's a little bit out there, but something that's what it takes sometimes to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, that's true.
That is definitely something. And the other person would be my dad, because my dad has taught me a lot about business and about life.
Nice.
And again, my mom too. But again, I think my mom and my dad working together, that would be a little tough. They get along just fine, but not when it comes to business. They're they both have very strong minds and hearts. But one person that she is my advisor is my wife, Veronica. And she definitely, I said it before, she's my muse, and she's the voice of reason. So I have to mix, someone who also already passed, Gandhi, then someone who's alive, who is, Elon Musk, and my parents and my wife. And I think that dream team alone would be good enough to take on anything.
Well, I would tell you that, yes, you've topped. You've jumped to the top of the circle there with that dream team, and I have no doubts that the dream team would be there to provide the dreams and the guidance, but I think that they have a very confident and capable captain at the helm. So Andres, thank you very, very much for sharing your journey with us today. It's been really, really great having you here. It's amazing because you're talking there, and I'm actually flashing back to when we were, and wearing probably size 28 pants back then, and our youthful.
That was my size. I'm size 36 now. I'll never forget. Who was it? Sergeant Valentine, who was.
Yeah, Sergeant Valentine. Yeah.
Yeah. That son, he just looked at me and said, "You're a size 28." I said, "How do you know this?" He's like, "I'm the one who dressed all the cadets in here. I just have to look at you and I know how tall you are, and I know what shirt size and pant size."
Yeah. He was very special, man. Great guy. But it's amazing because it's how do you say this? I interview my guests. I have a great time here. It's a learning experience, and it's our show is really about getting people like yourself out there into the community to share knowledge, which you did a lot today, etc. But today was a bit, how do you say, it's a surreal moment of pride sitting across from one of my classmates and just hearing you in full command of your discipline, so to say, of your area of expertise and your willingness, which comes to no surprise to me, to really share that knowledge with others out there. Thank you very, very much. I forgot to ask you one thing, one final thing before we part. If a member of my audience really wants to, reach out to you and may want to, get in touch with you, etc., how would they go about that?
Very simple. www.aether AETHERmarketing.com. Ether is AETHER, and then marketing.com. And by the way, I'll add in here one more thing. Quite often I'm asked, what is ether? Well, I told you about alchemists, but in the old days, they believed that the ether was the fifth element, the one that bound together earth, wind, fire, and water.
Yes.
And so the symbol of my company is basically, if you've seen the movie The Fifth Element, towards the end, there's 4 corners, and then there's with earth, wind, fire, and water, and Lilo Dallas in the center, which had the orange hair. She was the fifth element, and hence the color of the branding in our company is orange. So again, I'm a big Star Wars and sci-fi fan, and definitely The Fifth Element is one of those movies that connects to the company branding.
Well, I would say that that's a fitting way to end this podcast here, and I'll end it this way. Let me start first by saying thank you. And thank you, and thank you.
You're welcome.
I really, really appreciate having you on, and thank you for all the knowledge you shared, and I can't wait to get this out to our audience. But you are a true person and true testament of practicing what you preach, because you talked about branding, you talked about bringing it all together, etc. But that whole concept actually lives in the brand of your own company, and what you do for others, you've actually implemented in your story that you told all of us to have about your brand. So that's amazing. Andres, thank you. Godspeed. God bless. Stay safe, and appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Roy.
Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our podcast. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you, or if you know someone who fits the criteria, then be sure to visit our website at dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. That's dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next podcast video is live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car ride, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using the corresponding links below. Thanks, and once again, keep crushing it.